Hello, my name's Emily. I'm an artist and jewellery maker. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the art haul, the long-awaited art haul. I accumulated some stuff that I've been trying to replenish over the past few months and thought I'd put it all together in one video because I enjoy watching these videos so much myself, and I know the past hauls I've done on my channel as well have also been enjoyed, so enjoy! So I've been going on about this art haul for a while and I have been accumulating some bits and bobs, so I thought I would finally, now that I've recovered from a horrible reinfection of glandular fever, go through the items that I have picked up. I absolutely adore watching art hauls myself. I find them really relaxing and I thought I might as well do this as well because these are really fun videos for me to do as well, and I get to kind of show you what I've been picking up recently, things that have been really piquing my interest in terms of what I'd like to experiment with. So it's a good insight into what the sort of media that I'm really into using in my artwork at the minute. So I'm going to start off with the acrylic paint because I've got quite a lot of that, because a lot of the tubes I have used have either been very old and now are kind of separated and go quite oily, or I have ran out of. Some of the items that I've done I've replaced exact duplicates of, for example Winsor & Newton Payne's Grey, but some of the colours that I have replaced with is with a different item altogether, in the sense of a different brand, so I can experiment with the formula, or a brand that I much prefer, or just because there was a item that was a little bit cheaper on offer or had more volume and was more value for money. So I have my iced coffee here. I'm really into an iced coffee when it's really warm or when I'm suffering from a temperature, but could really do with a caffeine boost. I'm even being naughty because this is actually a real coffee, but I didn't have one this morning, so I thought I'd make the most of that and have one that's a bit more posh and special. So this one is vanilla, a vanilla iced latte, so very much enjoying this. I will also be swatching these as well, so I'll start with the acrylic paint and go from there. In fact, the best starting point is probably the brushes, because I am going to be using one of these brushes to swatch with. So I did pick up some new brushes, ones that I'm finding would benefit my canvas painting commissions a lot more, because either ones that I've got I haven't got in the right size, or I'm just really enjoying it and I could do with having a spare. First brush I picked up was a round mop by the Rowney Graduate line. This is a 3/4 inch. I really like these for buffing out acrylic paint. I find it really gives a nice smooth blend. I've got quite a lot of small round mops and I've got one that's a lot larger, so I could just do with an in-between size, because a lot of the canvases that I'm doing now are between either A4 or A3. So especially if I'm just really buffing out the edges of a background, this size would come in really, really handy. It'll definitely help me. I'm currently doing a goat canvas for my own mental health because I love goats and I love painting. So I'm doing that when I feel like I need a bit of a quiet, arty session for therapeutic purposes. I then picked up another Rowney. In fact, I think I picked up two Rowney. I think I've got a 2 of these, of this line as well, but I don't know where it's gone. I think it might have fallen down the back of the bookshelf when trying to get all the things, so that'll be fun to discover. But I could really do with a coarser fan brush. I have one that's quite thin and flimsy and it doesn't get the right sort of texture that I want with acrylic paint. I really like using these for either trees or foliage, and I could have really done with one that's a bit coarser and larger, so that's why I got this one. And the 2 I think is just a little bit smaller than this. When I find it, I'll be glad, because I could do with using it. The handle is quite large, which I find quite difficult, especially because it does make it harder to store, but I don't know, I've not used one. Maybe it's just down to familiarity. I normally use shorter handles, but I will see how this goes. I then picked up some Pro Art brushes. Now, I've never used Pro Art and I've heard nothing but good things, and these were relatively expensive from Cass Art, and I kind of thought, well, filberts are ones that I use probably the most, so I got my most common size, which is a 2, which I will be using to swatch the paints with today. And then I also got a 4 and a 0. I believe they are like a synthetic Taklon, but they look really, really lovely, look really sort of precise and clean, which I'm really pleased with. But they also have a special range of more kind of special effect brushes, and one thing that I'm using a lot of in portraiture is the comb rake brush that I have. These are the Terry Harrison Special Effects paintbrushes, and the comb brush that I have currently is a little bit narrower and slightly longer, whereas I quite like the fact that this was more a wider sort of shape, and the rake sort of hairs are actually a lot longer. So I'll be interested to see the sort of effect that this does, whether it will make hair easier or the effect different, or I could use the two together. And then this one is another mop. It is the Lunar mop, and I really liked the shape of this. It actually reminds me of an eyeshadow brush, but I have one that is from Royal Langnickel. It's slightly narrower, but and I really enjoy using it, but it is looking a little bit worse for because of how much I do use it. And this just looked really interesting, and when I saw the rake in stock, I thought, well, I'll try this one as well, because brushes are something of an investment, and I do predominantly buy a lot cheaper brushes, but these weren't expensive by any means. I believe these special effects ones were around £6 each. Also, another item that I picked up, which I thought I'd mention because these are what I've written all these in, are the Sharpie S Gel gel pens. They are a 0.7 bullet tip, retractable. I'm using these more for journaling at the minute because I find the gel pens just a little bit more forgiving when I'm writing and can be quite heavy-handed. So sometimes the fine liner tips can be blunted quite easily with my writing when I am pressing down a bit too hard. So I thought these would probably serve me a bit better. So first of all, in the Amsterdam line, I picked up the greenish yellow. I often use this sort of almost fluorescent yellow sort of shade as a pop of colour in like foliage. So normally if I'm doing veins, or if I want to kind of have a impression of there being like a light source, I quite like using a really vibrant, slightly greeny yellow for that. And the one that I'm using a lot of at the minute is the Turner Acryl Gouache in fresh green, but I'm finding the matte finish kind of does dull down the colour just a little bit for when I want it to be a sort of light source type thing. So I thought I'd pick up the Amsterdam acrylic paint because it's not necessarily matte, but it's not shiny. It kind of just, it's an acrylic paint, so it has a slight sheen to it, which I really like. So, and I really do like these Amsterdam paints. I've got a couple at the minute that I'm really enjoying. They're really opaque, they're very versatile and very reliable in that sense. You kind of can work with them really easily, and you also get quite a lot for the money. I think these were about £3.55 when I bought them, and you get 120 mils, so relatively inexpensive, but for the quality, look at that colour. They had a few colours similar to this. There was like light olive green and yellowish green, so there was a lot of options with this, but I thought because I like my yellow to be tinted with green rather than my green tinted with yellow, I thought I'd have the base being the yellow but then with the green sort of tint. And I'm really pleased. That's actually a really nice consistency. But then when you kind of wash it out, you can definitely see more of the yellow, which is just the sort of effect that I wanted. Yes, I like that. I like using these with the botanical paintings because they kind of give a bit more of a unique vibrance, and then paired with things like olive greens or chromium oxide greens, it just gives a really nice, interesting pop of vibrancy, which I really like. The next colour I got was primary yellow because my cadmium yellow hue from Winsor & Newton is running low. And again, I really like the Amsterdam line for how versatile and for the amount that you get. And I was debating whether to get the Azo yellow or the chrome yellow. I thought the primary yellow, with it being primary, I thought it was quite a solid choice, neither too lemony or too golden yellow, so that's why I chose this one. And I thought it would also pair nicely with the other colours that I've got. Yes, I like that that's not overly lemony, because some of the yellows can be a bit too warm or a bit too cool. I like that this is kind of the best of both. It's also really opaque for yellow, look at that. Quite a lot of yellows, especially the lemon yellows, can be quite transparent, which is all great if that's what you want, but I quite like a really opaque yellow, but finding one that's opaque without, but like compromising with the texture can be quite difficult. But that's perfect, that's just what I was after. I found when doing my goat canvas that the one colour that I keep consistently mixing is very similar to this, which is Naples yellow green. So I thought rather than wasting all my other paints mixing the right colour, I would just get the one that I keep trying to mix for ease, quickness, but also because I am obviously using it a lot if I keep mixing the same colour, and it would make it a lot easier in the painting process. One thing I will say is this Amsterdam range has a lot of gorgeous colours and lots of really good neutrals as well. So rather than just say the classic ultramarines and whatnot, you do get some really nice, interesting, like We have variations of the Naples yellow, from Naples yellow red and Naples yellow green. They have 2 different buff titaniums, and they also have like Caput Mortem, Perylene Maroon as well. So it's hard to find those sort of colours without kind of spending a little bit too much. And for the amount that you get as well, it just makes it really far more accessible for more budgets. Oh yes, I like that. It actually comes off more grey-green on paper than it does in the tube. It looks more ivory cream, but that's perfect. And I like the fact that I can mix that with white to make it paler, but as a base, that's lovely and really smooth. You can really work that in. This brush as well is gorgeous. I can't get over how creamy they are. They're really, really lovely. The next colour is again one that I mix quite a lot of. I've got the Arteza acrylic paint, which I really like. It's got a gorgeous shine, but it is just a little bit too dark, and I would just like one that's a hair lighter, because I tend to always need to mix white to get the right colour that I'm after, and this Persian rose is just what I needed for that. I've got the Venetian rose, which is more like a corally pink, which I adore, but I just could have done with one that's a little bit cooler in tone, and that's this one. Yes, I really like that. Again, these paints are just so versatile. I love the texture. It's very, like, the viscosity is just my perfect sort of acrylic paint. I don't like them that are too watery, but I also don't like them when they're too thick. This is just exactly what I'm looking for in an acrylic paint. And the final one is a colour that I am less familiar with. I don't use as often, but it's one that I'm reaching for a lot in watercolours, that I thought it might be quite nice to have that cohesion in my acrylic paintings as well. So I picked up the Vermilion in the Amsterdam acrylic range. Also, what I liked about this is how like vibrant it is. I'm not overly sure if that's true Vermilion. I think it's definitely more orange. I don't know whether the red background of that paint tube made it look redder than it was, but I can definitely make it work with the other colours that I have. It's just very much an orange to me, like a chrome orange more than a vermilion. It's also not quite as vibrant as I thought it would be. Maybe it'll dry down darker, but I mean, I can definitely still work with it, but it's definitely not how I envisage vermilion. But that could just be me. I might be envisaging vermilion wrong, I don't know. The next paint I'm quickly going to swatch is one that I did just try to cut costs with. I wanted to have the squeezy tube because I find it a lot easier for me to open. Anything that has kind of like a twist cap, similar to the Winsor & Newton ones, unless the colour's worth it, I do really struggle to open them. That's why I've got like a tin opener, can opener type thing to open them properly, because I haven't got the grip anymore. But the Rowney graduate acrylic I picked up, it was £1.99 from the range, and I use black a lot, but I mainly use it for mixing, so I thought it doesn't really matter too much of the quality if I'm going to be mixing it anyway. I do like Rowney, I trust their brand, and that's what I thought. The black I will be swatching here, but I'm also going to swatch it where the Arteza titanium white I'm also going to swatch, so I can see how that looks over the top in terms of opacity, because I think it gives it the best sort of view on how it actually works. That's really opaque. I didn't put a lot on either. That's very opaque. Do I think maybe it could have something to do with this brush for how well the pigment is applying? Possibly. That is a nice black paint. So I'll go over this particular section with the titanium white last, because it gives it time to dry, so you can see how it looks. It's definitely very opaque. It kind of has like a carbon like depth to it, which I really like. Sometimes some blacks can look a bit too sepia, which if I wanted to use something more sepia, I would tend to use sepia. So I like it. If I'm going to be using a black, I want it to be really inky and dark, and that works perfectly. And the last acrylic paints, other than the Arteza white, will be the Winsor & Newton Galeria. These are probably my go-tos for value for money, but also the quality. The colour range as well is lovely for staple colours. I think the Amsterdam range definitely has more unique colours, but there are some really nice colours in this line. My particular favourites are pale umber and pale olive. The Payne's grey is also lovely, and the powder blue I've also used a lot of as well. I do like a new one because it's much easier to open for my rubbish grip. I would also like to apologise for the state of my fingers. I wasn't well this week, so when I'm not well, my anxiety is rife, so I nibble. But we all have those little habits that help us cope, and me ripping skin off my fingers seems to help. So this is the Payne's grey. It very much reminds me of the Schminke Payne's grey bluish, but in like acrylic paint form. It has a slight transparency, but not to a point where it compromises the pigment. It just kind of has that blendable edge to it where you can buff it out really nicely, and it makes it easy to tell it apart from, say, a black. And then have ultramarine. This is actually, I think, my first ultramarine paint. I might have had a little set when I first got into painting, but I don't think I've actually bought a proper ultramarine paint. I probably had a cerulean or a cyan. I don't actually remember having ultramarine, and I do like ultramarine. I also like ultramarine as like a base to then apply lighter pastel colours over the top, because it has that sort of really rich pigment to it. I really like this brush as well. It's the Pro Art Masterstroke Filbert in 2. Again, a little bit sheer, but definitely something I can work with. Like, I normally use these sort of colours on their own more as backgrounds anyway, or to mix with other things, so the opacity isn't really the main point with this. The Amsterdams definitely was stuff that I would use more on their own. And then have Phthalo green. I'm almost on the hunt always for the darkest green that I can find, like an equivalent of a Payne's grey but in green. If you know of a really dark, almost like a Perylene green but in like acrylic paint form, let me know. I'm always on the hunt for one, and I tend to get them with all the hope in the world for them to be as inky as a Payne's grey but in green form, and I'm always left somewhat disappointed. So I got this one because it has a slight more sort of viridian like hue to it than, say, a sap green, but mainly for mixing again, so I can make those really dark greens that I like in botanical pieces and landscapes. It's really nice and vibrant. The undertone of that is perfect for what I'm after. Very viridian-y. I like that. I like the texture of these as well. They're very buildable. We then have Van Dyke Brown. I've only really used burnt siennas and burnt umbers, but I have a Van Dyke Brown Winsor & Newton Professional watercolour, and I loved the tone of it, so I thought I would try the Galeria to see if that's much different. Still quite sheer. Not necessarily a bad thing. I definitely prefer the opacity of the Amsterdams. Probably would have liked this one to be slightly more opaque for things like branches, but I can definitely work with it. I think I'd have to build up the layers a bit more. It's not impossible. And finally, this is what I was talking about with the hue. I have the cadmium red hue, and I'm quite glad I've picked this up now, knowing that the vermilion is not quite as red as I would like. So I'll probably mix that with this to see if I can get the right sort of colour. Now that is vibrant. Now that's the sort of opacity that I was after. Again, slightly too red for my vermilion taste, but mix that with the vermilion from Amsterdam and I think we'll have the right colour that I'm after. So not all hope is lost yet. Thought I'd show you the paper that I'm actually using to swatch on these. I thought this would be the most versatile for what I am after. It's the Smooth Heavyweight by Darla and Rowney, and it's the cartridge paper. It's 220 GSM, nice and smooth. It's got quite a nice absorbency to it as well, and this is the A5 size. I rather like this. For swatching it's perfect, and I also like this for sketches and kind of trial and error pieces. It's quite forgiving in that respect to kind of work out what you're after. It works with quite a lot of different mediums as well, so it's very versatile. Good mixed media paper. And the final paint to try is the Arteza Titanium White. I really love the other Arteza acrylic paints I have because they have a lovely shine to them, so I thought I would definitely try the white because again the shine really does appeal to me, and in white kind of the perfect one to show shine to. Oh, it has a foil seal. Bear with me a moment. I think I'm just going to dip the paintbrush in so not to disturb it with anything else, because that paintbrush could definitely do with a good rinse and a soak. If I get a really fine brush, let's see how this one works. This is my go-to white outline brush. Well, that's very nice and opaque. Reminds me of the other paints that I have. Again, nice viscosity to it, but still buildable, so it wouldn't be completely against being a mixing paint as well to make things more pale. How is it for dotting though? I do love a sparkle and a dot, so let's see. I mean, it works. That's lovely. Yes, I like that. The next paints I shall be swatching are by Turner, and they are the Acryl gouaches. I really love these gouaches. They're really nice and matte in finish. See, they're slightly thicker than the Holbein, and they do also have a really nice colour range. I especially love their greyish range and their pastel range. They've got some really unique colours in those specific ranges. They have a Japanesque range, which has a more sort of grainy texture to them, also beautiful. The only criticism I have with the Turner acryl gouaches are the inconsistencies in the formulas. I find I struggle more with these separating a lot more than the Holbein. I'm not too sure why. I've got one that I love, it's ivy green, but it's kind of I can't really use it anymore. Same with the magenta, but it just comes out as like an oily sort of residue first, and all the paint at the bottom is kind of gross. So I find it's more the darker sort of richer colours that do that. I've not really had the same problem happen with the pastel and the greyish colours, and like you have just heard, I am on the hunt for the darkest green. I've seen a couple of artists use the greyish green and I love the way that it looked. Oh, it's lovely and earthy, kind of muddy in sort of the best way. I do add a little bit of water with these ones because I find they blend a little bit better into the paper, and I like the consistency to be a bit more tailored to what I'm after. But that looks lush. It's quite similar to the ash green in Holbein, but imagine this is the more olive variety and the ash green is more of the Tharlo variety. Oh, I like that. I think I've seen Natasha Newton use this one quite a lot, and I think it was her videos that definitely made me aware of this colour, and I love her colour palettes and her artwork. She's very inspiring in that respect. And then we have the Pastel Olive, which I have used an entire pastel sand before, but again, I think it wasn't quite as murky as I would have liked it. It was definitely a very beigey pastel sand, but I quite like my sandy colours to have a little bit more of like a greeny chartreuse feel to them. And this one definitely fits that bill. I like these colours together as well. It makes me kind of want to do like a pattern with just these sort of tones. Maybe something a bit William Morris-esque. not like my usual style, maximalism, chaotic colour, but sometimes go outside your norm. I might learn something. Yes, I love that. Oh, I'm so pleased with these colours. These are just what I was after. I'm going to mix these colours together because I've got another white I'd like to swatch, which you've probably seen the sneak peek of. Also, I'm curious to see this colour mixed as well, so let's just go for it. I mean, I didn't think I could fall in love with these colours more, but I think I just have. This is making me want to do a limited colour palette, painting in just these. Whether it's repeating pattern, whether it's botanical, whether it's a still life, just using these colours and maybe a black. I'm not sure, kind of like a green sepia type painting, that would be quite cool. Oh, I'm inspired. The next items I'm swatching, you've probably seen, are my Uni Poscas. I bought these with my Hobbycraft vouchers. I often use these to kind of outline my canvases because it gives it like a framing without it kind of compromising the rest of the painting look. It doesn't compete and whatnot. And I really like this fine 1MR. And I've got them both in black because I use those the most. I then saw that Cassart finally do the darker Poscas singly. And I'm out of my English green now. It is literally dry and I'm really trying hard to not need it, but I do really enjoy that colour in the sort of acrylic marker form. And my ochre, I've used it with English green so much that it's now tainted green. So I bought these two as the singles. They were originally in like a darker, like rich tone set. It had like Prussian blue and raspberry, which I also really like. But I definitely think out of them all, these are my most used colours. So I'm really pleased I have these back in my life because I have definitely felt the lacking of them more and more, especially while I'm getting back into my sketchbooking. I could have really done with these back and now I have them. I also, as I'm getting back into portraiture, thought I'd give these colours a go again. I've got the ivory in the 5M, but it can be quite thick for what I'm after. So I got the 3M in the ivory, which I think would work a lot better. And then the beige, I remember I bought a set originally with the beige and I used it up and then never repurchased it. But I remember if I used it all up, I must have liked it. I think it's slightly deeper, if a little bit pinker than the ivory. So we shall see. You do have to activate these because they're normally a plain nib that you then have to press a few times to get the ink down. So I will do that and then I'll swatch these for you. So it has actually been a few days since the last part of this haul. I activated my Posca markers and then had a phone call with the radiology department and had an MRI sorted. Then I had to do a bit more medical admin to prepare for that, and I completely forgot where I was, and by the time that was all over I had to go to physio. So I'm back now. You're probably aware that my voice sounds a bit different. I actually got COVID again, so I can finally talk again, but I am struggling with being able to take deep breaths. So I can now talk a bit better. I get quite breathless, so I will probably have to take a few breaks to breathe, but I'll try and edit those out. But I really wanted to get this video done because I think it might be a bit of a boost for me mentally after being rather unwell in bed for a while. So I thought I'd finish off swatching these. Yes, where was I? I was going to be swatching the Uni Posca markers, but I wanted to actually just swatch the Rowney FW acrylic ink in white because I have these in like darker colours for backgrounds, but I thought I'd try the white because I really like how with the acrylic polymer in it, it won't actually disrupt with water. So I thought that'd be quite a good way. Similar to masking fluid, but I'll move on to that a little bit later because I did buy something similar to that. But more as a way to kind of lighten up certain areas, mix the colours a bit more kind of freely, especially with like the neon colours that I've got. I have given it a good shake because they can sometimes separate a little bit. But I'm interested to see how this looks over the top. It might also be quite a more fluid approach to the highlights that I do with gouache. So if this works quite well, or as well as the gouache that I use, if it's a bit more liquidy, it might have a bit more kind of a flow to it. So we shall see. I mean, it looks opaque. Might need to be a bit built up, or slightly laid on a bit thicker. I mean, it might be better as like a mixer for paler colours. I'm not sure the opacity is quite enough for like a really bold highlight. Let's see how a sparkle will fare. I do love a sparkle. If it works well with a sparkle, then I'll be happy. I mean, that looks okay. Maybe I just need to lay it on a bit thicker and let it kind of set, because that looks okay. Maybe it's better more like as dots than anything else, opposed to like a flow, because that does look a little bit more transparent. I'll be interested to see how that dries, and I will update you with that. But let's go on to the Posca markers. I did activate all of these so I could show you them before I got the phone call about my MRI. Who has an MRI at 7:10 in the morning? Apparently me. And it's not even in the town that I live in, so I have to wake up rather early for that. Let's just hope that the cough is better, because I can't imagine the situation being stuck in that little tunnel, breathless and needing to cough is going to be fun, but I digress. It is needed. I could really do with some results ASAP so I can get some treatment, but regardless. This is the Posca 8K in black. It's a chisel tip. I normally use this for outlining around a canvas, and they're normally quite juicy, which I quite like. Nice and smooth. And then I have the 1MR. I like these for like little detail, kind of like a fine liner, but with it being the acrylic paint marker, it tends to hold up. It's a lot more opaque, which I quite like. Look at that. Yes. I'm so glad I got one of these again now, because I do use these a lot, and all of mine ran out at the same time, which is typical. I will from now on only have one open at a time, because that was very disheartening when all three ran out and I'd been using them all in conjunction with each other and I didn't know that they were all running out. This is the English green. It's the one that I really enjoy using outlining in botanical pieces or kind of marking out shapes. It's just a really good colour. I think the green from Posca is really lovely, but it's just a bit too mid-tone, so having this really does give it a bit more sort of depth. Same with the ochre. I really love the straw yellow by Posca, but again, very mid-tone, but this as the outline around the straw yellow is perfect, and I really like this. It's the same sort of deep collection that I was talking about. I would love it if Posca did more colours similar to these sort of jewel tones. We then have the beige, which I'm so glad to have back in my life, because again, this ran out for me as well. And while I'm getting back into portraits, this would be very useful. And that is the 3M, so it is slightly finer, but that's why I chose it, because I thought for portraits I need a bit more sort of precision. And the same with the ivory. This is also the 3M. So it's still the same sort of bullet tip, it is just a bit finer than the 5M. I think I've discovered from the Rowney FW ink the best way to use it will be with the dotting than the layering. The layering would be great for mixing, kind of making the sort of pour art, might work quite well with that. But as for outlining, I think I need to work it more as like a highlight dotting approach, maybe sparkles, but the lines can be quite inconsistent, and the same with like the flatter colour. But I'll experiment with a few more brushes and see how I get on, but that is the rest of the swatching done. So I'm now going to move on to the last few bits that I picked up that weren't necessarily swatchable, but more kind of crafts and some more interesting techniques that I'd like to try. And it's something that I've wanted to try for a while, and it's watercolour ground. So it basically makes a surface like either wood or canvas become usable with watercolours. So it actually adds a porous layer over the top that you can then apply watercolour. It gives that absorbency to a non-absorbent surface. So this is the Qor, which I believe is from Golden, I think, and it was just the cheapest one that they had, but I thought I did want to give it a go. I do have a lot of canvases as well, and I'd be intrigued to see how that works on canvases for things like gifts for people, and even commissions later down the line, or even the surfaces on frames that I have that I'd like to experiment with. As it's the summer holidays and my partner's a teacher, we're hoping to go a few places when the weather's nice. If the weather's nice, is Britain. I picked up this water brush pen set. I can't remember where we were. I think I might have even got this online, I can't remember. And it has different sizes. So it has a couple of flatter. I really wanted the flatter, larger ones, because I think if I'm doing backgrounds on, say, a seascape or a landscape, I think it'd be nice to have this more like the sky and the green, and then have the more kind of precise bits as well. So I picked this up. I do want to actually make a plein air kit, if that is something you'd like to see me film, so you can see what I would take for plein air painting. Do let me know. But it's something I'm really interested in doing more of, because I don't get to go out as often, but when I do, I always get a lot of inspiration. And being in a wheelchair, I have a seat that I can go and sit in, and there are some lovely places near where we live. I wouldn't mind going sitting there and painting, and thought this would be quite useful. I thought I'd get the cheap and cheerful ones first, and if I like it, I could maybe get some other ones. I know Karen Dash do one, and I think Derwent do some as well, but I think these, in terms of the shapes and the sizes, would work best for me currently. These are super exciting because Fimo don't always do a lot of new colours. They have done more recently. Like, I know they've done some more galaxy colours and more effect colours, but as for the soft, less so. Only been the last couple of years that they've actually made more colours, but this colour is all of my murky dreams come true. I believe this is called Beach Grass, and it is just gorgeous. I think for flowers and for botanical earrings that I'm doing a lot more of, I know I'm actually working on a series of birth flowers in little jars. So this is a sneaky peek just for you. This is a rose in a jar, and I actually have bought more jars for that reason in this haul as well. But I thought definitely Fimo know what they're talking about, because this is definitely a colour that they are missing. Something of this sort of tone is definitely missing from their line, so they've done really well in that respect. They've listened to what we want. I remember they used to have olive green, which was great, but then you couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know whether they discontinued it, but this, maybe mixed with a bit of emerald, might give us that colour that we have been wishing for and wanting back. So this is perfect for that reason. As mentioned, I got a few more jars for this project. These are slightly larger. I think these are definitely going to be more like charms or decorations, maybe not so much pendants. But then I bought basically all of the ones that they had at my local range of the little small glass bottles. I'm not even joking. I think I literally cleared them out as their little ones. And there's more. And there's a few more as well. I have a nice little chain, some little floral piece. I think they'll be great for gifts, especially around Christmas. I know I love birth flowers, birthstones, that kind of thing. So I think these will be really sweet, especially around the festive period. One thing I did find was some sponges. We were just in the works. They do some quite good books and stuff, and I think we were just looking for some office supplies or gifts or something, and I came across their Artist Materials line, and I can't get over how much they've actually got compared to last time I went. I think they had some pens and some more kind of drawing supplies, maybe some sketch pencils and what before, but they've really revamped it. They've got tackle-on brushes. They've even got like acrylic inks and acrylic markers. I'm really impressed. When I saw this artist sponge set, literally for £2, it's got 6 different sponges in different sort of textures. I'm going to definitely look into more of these Crawford and Black Artist Materials, because there's some fantastic things. This is definitely something that should be commended in that respect, because it's making art more accessible for each budget. So really happy with this. Just a couple things left. When I went to Hobbycraft, I had a voucher and some points to use, and I wanted to make some initial letters, but I really wanted to go down the Carnival letter route, because that was the inspiration behind the logo of my business now, was the sort of circus carnival letters. I think they look really attractive, and I think they look really aesthetically pleasing, so I thought I'd do something similar, but in kind of as necklaces or earrings. Or I love how relatively simplistic the designs are, but then you can kind of work into them as well. I'm thinking like a gingham background, some form of outline, maybe some flowers, some embellishments and whatnot. But I mean, I think they're originally for cakes, but I mean, a lot of the fondant stuff and the polymer clay stuff overlap, so we shall see. But I did buy some masking fluid. I bought the blue tinted one, so I know which one's masking fluid and which one is more highlights. So which I want to keep it sort of blank and which I want to add as more like a vibrant highlight. So I got the blue tinted one. This is from Schminke. And then I bought some really cheap silicone tips because I see people use this with masking fluid, but also these have dotting tools as well. And because a lot of the highlights or blank pieces I want on my artwork might be more dots, like sparkles that I enjoy having in my artwork, I thought these would work really well. I think they're a couple of quid on eBay, so we'll see how this goes. I've not used masking fluid before. It does kind of baffle me, and I know the purpose is basically you apply this over places you want to keep blank, you do your painting, and then the last stage is peeling the last bit is then peeling the masking fluid off, which I think would also be very satisfying, but I'll go more into this later. That's the last item on my art haul, and I'm so sorry for the last part of this video being so nasal. I didn't expect to get COVID. I only just recovered from a glandular fever episode, so to have COVID afterwards, my body is definitely struggling, but I think that could be why I got it, because I'm so low on reserves that I would just catch anything at this point. But that is the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, or like me, please do subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here enjoying all of my arty endeavours. As for the next videos on this channel, there will be a studio vlog. There is a clay time where I am making some pretty exciting jewellery makes, and they are also arty inspired, so you know I love artists and replicating artwork in artists, but in jewellery form, well, you know I love that too, let's be honest. So if you enjoy the sounds of that, then there is a place for you on this channel. Also join this little community. I'm so thankful and grateful for all the lovely comments I receive. It does not go unnoticed. I am now hopefully going to rest my voice because the COVID is still rife. I need a good cough, so I'll go and do that. I hope you have a truly magical rest of your day. Please stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!